And so he put his badge up and said, I'm with the FBI. And I said, well, do you have a warrant? And he did have a warrant that was able to come in and search my house and search my truck to look for, he said, documents.
Launch sequence activated.
Welcome to CelinaRadio.com. I'm your host, Ron Lyons, and if you think that Celina, Texas is just a quiet little sleepy town with absolutely nothing going on, then you better buckle up, because Celina Radio is about to launch.
3, 2, 1.
Hey guys, welcome to another episode of CelinaRadio.com. And that little intro there, well, that was my depiction of the story that's kicked around so much out there right now about the quote-unquote FBI raid at Sean Terry's house. And you've heard the stories, and it's always painted in this really, really dark and sinister way, like the FBI comes flying up, there's helicopters overhead, smoke grenades going off everywhere, it's raining and storming, and they come up and they kick in the door and yelling and screaming and take everybody down at gunpoint. Or at least that's what they would have you believe. But is that how it really happened? We're going to let Sean Terry tell you in his own words. We're going to talk about a lot of stuff. We're not just going to talk about the quote-unquote FBI raid. We're going to talk about Centurion American because, well, you know, he works for Centurion American, and Centurion American has to be this big, evil developer who wants to control all of Celina and get rich off of everyone else, right? And, you know, it doesn't even matter because Sean Terry, as the story goes, has to recuse himself all the time. So, I mean, he's not even really an effective mayor because of that. Oh, and by the way, he lives in a trailer, so he's not even qualified to be mayor. I tell you what, why don't you sit back and let him tell his side of the story. All right, guys, I am here today with somebody who's been on the show before, and it's going to be a little different today. I actually received, a response from almost all the candidates on whether or not they'd be willing to come on the show, and for the most part, most of them did. But I got a really unique and different response from today's guest in the sense that he said, not only do I want to come on your show, I want you to take me to task. I want you to ask me the hard questions. And if you know anything at all about Celina, Texas, you know that is our current mayor, Sean Terry. Sean, how you doing today, man?
Good, Ron. Thank you. Thank you for having me on today. Thanks for letting me come on.
So it's really interesting that you told me that I could take you to task, and you said, hey, ask me the hard questions. What's the point of saying, hey, take me to task? What's the purpose?
I think, Ron, we only met a couple of months ago, if you really think about it, 3 or 4 months ago that we met and started talking about politics or just talking about the city in general. You've made a big investment in our downtown, and you're going to be a big partner in our city for a long time to come. And so I'm not a keyboard warrior. I would challenge anybody to go back and look at any of my social media since I've had social media. I don't get negative on there. I'm not a keyboard warrior. I don't like to go out there and put my life and get in a battle talking about the what ifs. Because some of those people, no matter what you say, if you go right, they're going to go left. And I felt like I've respected your show. I've listened to people being on here. And I felt like what better way to do this than a Celina resident who's got a stake in our community, who didn't know me 3 or 4 months ago. Let's set the record straight. Let's get things out there. It's not like I haven't been easy accessible all my time. I think I've missed 3 meetings in 15 years. I've been very dedicated to the city. Thanks to my wife and kids for seeing the bigger picture. And my family, my parents for saying, teaching me to pay it forward. And if it wasn't me, who would it be? And trying to make a difference in people's lives but just really get out there and tell my side of the story on certain things to clear it up once and for all.
So as of right now, and in a continued effort of transparency, because people need to know that I am a supporter of yours now, they also need to know that I was not necessarily a supporter of yours, and then it's only through you agreeing to sit down with me that I came to the conclusions that I hold today when I actually started looking for myself, when I actually asked you the questions, when I saw you out in the community and heard you talking to people and started hearing stories about your involvement out there, what a volunteer you were as a fireman, and all the way through the years, the different things you've done, everything from giving someone financial support when they needed it, putting floors in someone's home because they're now unfortunately in a wheelchair and they can't, have carpet in their home, and doing so many different things. And we'll get into some of those things in a minute if you want to. But let me just tell you right now, I'm going to ask you questions about things like the FBI.
Correct.
That's a big topic out there. You don't know what I'm going to ask about that, but I am going to ask about that. I'm going to ask about your employer. Okay, you work for Centurion American. It's just a big thing in Celina right now because, you've got an opponent. There's a contingent of people out there who like to try and spin some of this stuff sometimes. And I say spin because I know the truth.
Right.
And so that stuff gets kind of spun a little bit, and you want to shed light on that.
Correct.
You want to tell the truth.
Right.
Okay, so I'm going to ask questions about that. And I'm going to ask a few other things about like recusal whenever some of the Centurion American things come to count. I mean, I've got a whole list of things. So if you see this piece of paper sitting in front of me right now, that's what this is. I'll tell you what we're not going to do today. Unfortunately, we're not going to have a lot of fun. I don't have a game. That's a typical...
that's typical game. Yeah, like we did with Chief Cullison back then.
Exactly. We're not going to do any of that stuff today because I think this stuff is too critical. This is too important. So let me first ask you this. You're running for mayor. And for people who don't know, how long have you been mayor right now?
So before I answer that, I just want to make sure, I appreciate we're being on this, but I want to say anytime I've been asked this out in the public face to face, I've answered the questions.
As you did for me.
Yes, correct. And so this is going on record. So people, we have something, if they say, hey, they want to hear more about it in depth, when you get around a group of people, we've met with a lot of people the last 3 or 4 weeks, and you don't sometimes have time to really dive into it. And today I want a reference point. If somebody asks, go back and listen. This is not something that I'm scared to talk about, that I'm worried to talk about. But I appreciate this outlet doing that. So I've been mayor the last 10 years in Celina.
And before that, you were on city council. How long were you on city council?
Roughly 4 years on city council before that.
Okay. And one of my favorite stories is that you were a volunteer firefighter here back in the day. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah. So, when I moved from Texas A&M back to Celina, I grew up in this area. And I was a volunteer fireman in high school. Even for Gunner, when I graduated from Gunner, I was a volunteer fireman there. And so the best way I could see getting back involved in the community was join the volunteer fire department. Celina was under 5,000 people then. I think they had 13 or 14 people on the fire department. And so I felt like that was a way for me to serve my community, was to get on the volunteer fire department, because there was a lot of, we had a lot of open land then, a lot of grass fires, but just not a lot of people that were volunteering, and everybody had jobs outside the city. And so we were just luck of the draw who would be here to go on a call.
Right. So I'm going to ask you a couple of different questions that are based on, I'm just going to hop straight into it.
Okay, let's do it.
The FBI raid.
And I hate calling it a raid because it wasn't a raid.
Okay, so there's spin number 1.
Right.
It was not that. You got to knock on the door.
Yes. I got a phone call first, and then I looked at my Ring camera, and I didn't recognize who it was. And it was 2 people in jackets. And so I looked at my wife, and I said, hey, you need to call the police right now. I don't know who's here.
Right. It could have been anybody.
It could have been anybody, And so I get up and I walk to the door and open the door, and there's 2 gentlemen standing there. And they said, hey, we need to talk to you. And I said, who are you? I still didn't know who they were then. They said, well, we just need to come in and talk to you. And no identification yet. And I said, well, who are you? He says, we're the FBI. And I said, well, I need some proof of that. And so he put his badge up and said, I'm with the FBI. And I said, well, do you have a warrant? And he did have a warrant that was able to come in and search my house and search my truck to look for, he said, documents.
Okay, so you don't know this is coming. You didn't have advance notice, other than apparently later you found out that the phone call was actually them calling.
Correct.
Okay. And correct me if I'm wrong on any of this, but so they come, they knock on the door, they've got a warrant, you know it's for documents. But up until this point, no idea. This is the first you've heard about anything FBI, whatever. So they come in, and what did they take?
So they ended up coming in, and they showed me the warrant, and I said, well, let me call an attorney. And so I did have access. I never had to use an attorney in my life, so this was all new to me. And so I called my attorney, and he said, read the warrant to me. And so I did, and he goes, okay, let them search what they want to search and comply with them. I said, okay. And so they came in, and they took some files that I had in a box that were for some documents that were basically for engineering designs for a fire station that we were looking at getting built in another city. And so then they asked for my cell phone. I gave them my cell phone. We sat right there while they downloaded my cell phone on their computer. And then they asked me where my company computer was. And I said, it's at my office. I don't take it out of the office. I said, would you like me to go with you to get it later? And they go, I don't know, we'll see. And so they walked around the house for 2 hours, probably, maybe 3. And then they left. And I said, what are you here for? I still don't know at this point. And they go, well, we didn't find what we were looking for, but we'll get back with you. And I said, but he said, but now you have an attorney. We'll talk to your attorney. I said, fine. And so the next day, I don't really know what's going on. I went on to work like I normally would, talked to my attorney there. He's trying to get some answers from him. Obviously, they weren't saying anything. And so about 48 hours later, they called my attorney and said, okay, this is their exact words. We have egg on our face. We didn't really find what we were told would be there. And they said, okay, so is it done yet? And are you through with him? He goes, we're not saying that yet. And so...
Okay, so let me just back up just a little bit. So they come in, they take your phone, they download your phone. Mm-hmm. They leave with any documents or no?
They left with one box of documents that had just stuff related to my company. Okay. Nothing to do with the city. It was all related to my company because they went through a box that I had because I had brought some stuff home because I was having a meeting in that city the next day. Actually 2 days later. And so we were just looking at the documents. I actually picked it up from our engineering office, which was in Frisco, just brought them home. So they looked at that. They went through my truck, didn't think anything out of my truck, but they left with that one box of stuff. And that was it.
And downloaded your phone and no computer because you didn't have a computer there, but you offered and they said they'd get back with you if they needed to do that. It wasn't like a high priority to go grab your computer at that point.
Correct.
And did you have the feeling at that point, did you know that this was related to work?
I did after, me, I like to talk a little bit. And some of the guys that were walking around talking, I kind of got out that they asked me specific questions like, where's your office, home office? Where do you keep your work documents at? And so I felt like once they only took what they took, the box, because I had to sign what they took, and it was all work-related stuff. So I had a pretty good educated guess that it was work-related. But at that point, there was a lot of things going on in the city that was missing. Some people out there making things up, that, things that were going on in the city. We were going through a termination of an employee. Things were being said that weren't true. And so I felt good enough that it was about the company. Once I got to the office that afternoon and talked to my attorney, they at least acknowledged, yes, it was all about work-related stuff.
So a certain amount of time, some days pass.
Yes.
And then the FBI, maybe a field agent, somebody, whoever, speaks to your attorney. Is that correct?
Yes.
And basically says, all right, we didn't find what we were looking for, but we're not willing to just walk away from this yet. But as of right now, nothing to it.
Correct.
Okay. Take me from there.
So about 9 months went by, probably. Didn't hear a word. Working as usual, doing my regular stuff as usual. Still in the back of your mind, when that happens to you, you really don't know because I barely ever had a speeding ticket. And so I'm still figuring out what's going on. And about 9 months later, maybe a year, somewhere in that 9 to 12 month time frame from the day it happened, my attorney called me and says, well, they didn't find what they were looking for. Again, he made the same statement. They have egg on their face. And I said, well, what were they looking for? And he goes, they still won't tell us, but it was documents that they said that you might have taken home that was a pending lawsuit that we were in at our company, which I was not even involved in, had nothing to do with any of the project that I worked on. And so I said, so what do we do now? He goes, just keep business as usual. They haven't told us anything else. So that was about 9 months to 12 months after the initial time that I had contact with the FBI at my house.
Okay. So at that point, it's going nowhere. Nope. No additional knocking on your door and none of that kind of stuff. No more searching your things. No arrest warrants. Nothing like that at all. They didn't call you down. Hey, come down here and put you under the spotlight and question you. None of that kind of stuff.
No. And make it clear, that warrant was never even an arrest warrant when they came. It was just to be able to look for certain documents.
So, absolutely. Yeah. And I've been in law enforcement. So you build what's called probable cause. You take an affidavit in front of a magistrate. He signs it and says, yes, you can go look for these things.
Right.
And there's a certain scope of what they're looking for.
Right.
Because they have some belief that there is, these documents or whatever the subject of the search is that could be found at this location. So they show up. Clearly, they didn't find what they were looking for, whatever it was. And from my understanding of what you're saying is that whatever it was they were looking for, you were at least clear that it didn't have anything to do with you directly.
Correct.
It was company related, and more specifically, things that you weren't even working on, not even like your projects or whatever. Am I correct in that?
You're correct in saying that, yes.
Okay. What happened after that?
So then another year went by. So now you're thinking this is 2 years. I felt good. I didn't do anything wrong. So I knew in my mind, but all the things crazy going around the world when you see, the FBI going to council or to school board meetings and trying to harass parents there that were speaking against things that they didn't believe they should be speaking against.
And in all fairness, what you're talking about is the FBI has been somewhat weaponized now.
Right.
It's not the FBI of old, and I'm not disparaging them in any way. I've got some friends, they're great FBI agents and that sort of thing, but even they will tell you that it's not the old FBI. It's largely become, it's just a different environment.
Yeah. And I'm not here to bash them. They have a job to do. I think there's levels of problems in every organization. I think they have a job to do, and there's some that do it good and some that don't do it good. But about a year from that date, when I talked to my attorney that time, he called me about a year later, and he says, okay, the documents they said they were looking for, they feel like were manufactured by two people that had been trying to take our company down for a while.
Okay, so this so basically looks like it's some sort of like a vendetta, or they created this false whatever it is that led the FBI to look for something that basically didn't exist.
Correct, exactly. And he said the case has been closed on you. There was never nothing there since the day they left your house. But they made a commitment that they would investigate the false claims, and I may hear from them again just to tell me what they found. I think they were worried that I may try to go sue the FBI or do something like that, and that's not my character. Yeah, was it a horrible 6 months not really knowing, even though they told me 48 hours later that it wasn't there? It really was more a personal vendetta between the people that wanted to take our company down.
And when you say our company, you're talking about
Centurion American, yes.
Okay, so Centurion American, a name that will come up again in this interview, just so you know.
Yeah.
Because it's related to everything going on in Celina right now. But so this was basically something where someone had provided some sort of a basis that the FBI decided they want to act on in pursuit of some documents that on cases that were projects that truly had nothing to do with you. They came to your home because there was maybe a rumor or evidence that you may have brought these documents home, and turns out you didn't have them. You were never the subject of the investigation. They were projects that you didn't have anything to do with. And so this whole thing drew out for some time, and at the end of it, basically, you're fully exonerated.
Correct, 100%.
You can say it right now in front of me and say, I am fully exonerated.
100%.
And you wouldn't be running for mayor right now. This is a big guess. But if you had any fear whatsoever that you were going to bring some shame or something like that to the city because there's still something pending out there or you're not sure about it, would you be running right now?
Absolutely not. If I had any chance to think that I did something wrong in the first place, which I didn't, but there would be no way that I would even put myself out there to bring any negativity to the city of Celina. I've been involved in this city for 25 years. I've been honorable about what I've done with this city. And first of all, if I thought any way possible at all, I wouldn't even be on here talking about it, because I would have gone off in the sunset being a 15-year elected official that had won every campaign I've ever been in, and I would have moved on and went on the sunset, so to speak. But I feel that important about Celina that we need to continue having good leaders in place to keep our city special. So I'd absolutely 100% not be pursuing another term if I thought there was anything possible that I would ever be in trouble for, because I live my life the right way, and that's no other way I can put it.
And that will be your legacy, that you're a person who went through this unfortunate situation with the FBI. I mean, you work for a big corporation. You can't help things like that happening. They're going to happen from time to time. I can't tell you how many warrants I must have served in all my years in law enforcement. And just because I come and serve a warrant doesn't mean that the people in that house or in that business are guilty of anything at all.
Right.
We're in pursuit of evidence. We're in pursuit of documents, or, it might be equipment, or it might be, it depends on what the crime is, right? But that does not make a person guilty simply because a search warrant is served either at their place of business or at their home or in their car or wherever. So correct me if I'm wrong about this. I think this is fairly obvious. This little thing that happens, because obviously, they like to say FBI raid. Mm-hmm. They like to make it sound like, helicopters flying over and smoke grenades going off and all this kind of stuff. That lends itself to be very easily used by somebody who would be an opponent of yours politically. Am I correct?
Correct. It'd be very easy to do that. Anytime we live in a world today that you're guilty until proven innocent, and people make mistakes. I'm not saying I'm perfect. People make mistakes, but also my life has been under a microscope since I went to Texas A&M and played football. My dad was a teacher and a coach. Mom was a teacher. Small schools, you're always under that microscope. I go from Gunner, Texas, graduating with 20 kids to the first class had 1,000 in it. And I became team captain. I became, a very good leader, I felt like, at Texas A&M. I had a sweet mate that passed away my freshman year at A&M. You have ups and downs in life. And I'm not a guy that wants to kick somebody when they're down. And that's why I feel so important about continuing. Whether I win or lose this race, I'm still going to be involved in Celina. And I do feel like I'm the best person as mayor because the relationships I created. I got endorsement from the Collin County Sheriff. Do you think I got endorsements from every elected official that touches our city? Do you think the Attorney General would allow me to call him and us have conversations, or the governor or lieutenant governor, if I was really that much of a liability? I think those people are, you've got a sheriff that's pretty in tune who was an ex-Texas Ranger. I had conversations with him about what happened because I didn't know. I reached out to people that I trusted. If I'd done something wrong, I'll be the first one to tell you, hey, I did something wrong and I'm going to go, pay my dues, what I have to do. But this was really hard on my family for a while to be in a public eye. If it would have happened to a regular citizens, you would have never heard about this.
And it probably continues to really not be the most fun thing in the world for you and for your family to have this still kicked around, because now it's a political football.
Right, exactly. 100%.
You're exonerated. You're done. You're not going to jail. There's no indictments. There's nothing pending. You're free and clear.
Right.
There was never helicopters flying over your house with spotlights shining down, and you didn't have smoke grenades going off and tear gas, and it wasn't that kind of a thing. And it truly, honestly, it had nothing to do with you.
Nope.
And
nothing at all.
Yet here we are right now, and you're having to explain it to the masses so that everyone understands. And I know you've always taken this way of like, hey, if you've got questions, reach out to me and I'll sit down with you and talk. And I took you up on that.
Yeah. And some others have as well.
But now it's gotten to the point that this story is being like retold with a lot of spin put on it and all these negative, dark images and stuff, that now you need to reach out to the masses. And this is a way you can do it. That's why you welcome me to ask you these questions. And this is on the record.
Correct. And
this is recorded. This is out there. This has life.
Yeah. And I'm not here to make it an FBI bashing situation, because they have their job to do too. I was basically just somebody they wanted to come talk to. And it's no reflection of Centurion American either, because we are a big company and we do a lot of big projects. And when you're successful, people want to take you down. That's the way of life right now. And I talk to this a lot of times about my cohorts that are other elected officials or successful business people, that they're always getting attacked. You can't please everybody. But I wanted to set the record on this is I answered the questions, my answers were right, and I want to move on and continue growing a great city.
Guys, what do you think about the episode so far? Personally, I think it's fantastic that Mayor Sean Terry is willing to share his side of the story. And there's always two sides to the story, right? And let me tell you a little bit about my own personal journey and how I got to where I'm at today. I started off on the fence, and I was on the fence because I had two different things going on. I had a lot of people in my ear saying, oh, Sean Terry, bad Sean, King Sean, he's on the take, he works for Centurion America, he's trying to buy all of Celina and wheel and deal and do all of this stuff. And then the FBI thing, of course, and oh my God, the FBI raided him, he'll be arrested any day, all this kind of stuff. And then all this stuff about, oh well, he has to recuse himself all the time. He's really not even an effective mayor because he's constantly recusing himself. And I heard all that, but at the same time, I've got common sense, and I think, you know what? It's under his leadership that this city has become one of the fastest growing cities in the country. So how is it that we're accomplishing all of this great stuff, but he's such a bad guy? And so if you know me, you know I'm willing to sit down with you and just hammer out some really tough stuff. I just can't help myself. It's the cop in me. It's who I am. So I sat down with Sean Terry and I asked him straight up, very, very, very clearly. I had very direct questions. And guess what? I walked into the meeting on the fence. I walked out of the meeting being a Sean Terry fan. And so here we are today. All of these stories have been kicked around a lot. They're really vicious. They're getting better and better as time goes on. They get more and more aggressive. But you know what? You deserve the right to listen to the man himself. It's hard to find time to call someone, sit down, and do exactly what I did, and I understand that. So we're doing it right here today on Celina Radio. We've got a little more to cover. So go refill your drink, get you something nice, find a comfortable spot, and let's get back to talking to Sean Terry. Let's talk about your employer. So Centurion American, tell me what is, for people who don't know, what does Centurion American do?
So Centurion American, we are a custom home builders. We're a developer. We own hotels. We own restaurants. We're kind of into all kinds of real estate deals. I would call us a real estate company. We have over 350, 400 developments going on today throughout North Texas, some in Austin, a few in Houston, San Antonio, but basically North Texas. We have about 25 restaurants that we run. We have one hotel, the Statler Hotel that we own today. We're renovating the Cabana Hotel. You know, a couple iconic things I'm working on right now is the Collin Creek Mall, which was in Plano forever. We're bringing that back to life. South Fork Ranch, where they shot Dallas. We're working on that. Then the Mesquite Rodeo, which is a really cool thing, iconic deal in Mesquite. That's one of the things that I'm really working on hard right now is the Mesquite Rodeo. We've got a lot of development going on out there. And so Centurion American is the largest developer in the state of Texas and maybe the country. Put it in perspective, our closest competition will do 1,000 lots this year. We'll put over 7,000 lots on the ground this year in North Texas.
Okay, so it's impressive. It's a big company.
Yes, sir.
Okay, and let me tell you what the optics are on this, okay? The optics on this are the people who are out there telling the story about Centurion America and Sean Terry, and they have all these derogatory terms. They love to, I'm sure you've heard them all.
Yep, I have.
King Sean and everything else. Not nice stuff.
Right.
Not nice stuff. And but that's politics, and you've got a thick skin, and you've weathered this stuff before.
Right.
Have you ever seen it as bad as it is right now?
No, because I think social media has gotten worse. You realize, 10 years ago I had an opponent. I haven't had an opponent in 10 years. So it's always funny around election time. Even if I wasn't running, I would get attacked a little bit. But I wasn't the one on the hot seat having to run. Now I am. So now gloves are off. because they want to make up whatever they can say about me and whatever else to try to get me to go negative, to get me to go out there and getting social media fights. I think in the last 3 years, I think COVID made a lot of people upset, evil, whatever, big government trying to shut down local business or whatever they were doing during COVID. And so I think social media has taken on its own life of not being 100% truthful on social media. And I think the attacks are worse because it's a lot easier for somebody to sit behind a computer and type out that what they say instead of sit down and having a conversation face to face.
So let me tell you what that optic that is out there. And I find it hilarious. And I think anybody that knows anything at all about how local government works is going to already know the reality of this is nothing like the way that it's, suggested out there. And that is that basically you work for Centurion America and you're out there wheeling and dealing and doing deals for Celina and probably pocketing some of the money yourself and getting really wealthy. And it's you out there on behalf of Celina, but wink, wink, you work for Centurion America doing these deals. Basically, you've got both sides of the deal. Is that the case?
Absolutely false. My job at Centurion American is I have job-specific projects that I work on. We have so many projects. Most of mine have been more of the high-profile projects because I have great relationships throughout North Texas. I spend a lot of time in the city of Dallas working on our Jackson Street project or the Statler, big, iconic projects like Collin Creek Mall. I was very involved in that in Plano. The Mesquite Rodeo, like I mentioned a while ago, got thrown into the Cabana Hotel recently to try to help with some things on that. And so if you understood how government worked, and I wish more people would come to council meetings and really see how it works. When a project starts, and going back to Centurion American, I don't go out and find the land. I don't go out and buy the land. I don't put the financial structure together. I do, on my projects, do the entitlement side of it, which means I do work with cities that go out and meet with, whether they're mayors, whether they're city managers or city staff, to get the approval process done through that process. Anything in Celina is probably about 3 to 5% of our total business, maybe not that much. So,
okay, hold on. I want to understand that again. What roughly what percent?
So I would guess 3 to 5%. I mean, we got over 400 projects, and we have 8 in Celina. So do the math. What would you say? 3 to 5%?
Yeah. It's a very, very low percentage. Yeah. So everybody that likes to spin your story likes to make it sound like Centurion American basically owns Celina.
Right. Yeah. And Centurion American started doing work in Celina 30 years ago. Their first deal was Carter Ranch. Back before, I met Murdad when I was 17 years old. It's not like I just didn't know Murdad Moyetti.
Murdad, who is
Murdad Moyetti is our president and CEO, the owner of Centurion American.
Okay.
He started it from the ground floor, started out as a landscaper, and turned it into a $1 billion company. And so he invested in Celina 30 years ago because he had met with leadership here. He knew Celina at some day was going to be the place to be. And so he came out and started Carter Ranch roughly 30 years ago.
So you're not actually out there wheeling and dealing yourself. You're not like buying deals for the city and like negotiating them down and then taking that money to the bank, running to the bank with a check and, skimming a little off the top for yourself and putting it in your pocket. That would indicate that there's no city staff involved, that there's no planning and zoning, that there's no anything else, no one else involved, that there's no actual council involved in these decisions, and that it's just, as they like to say, King Terry out there wheeling and dealing.
Exactly right. I don't do that wheeling and dealing. Even on projects that's not in Celina, I don't go out there and negotiate property deals. There's so many brokers in North Texas, they bring deals to Murdad. Murdad Moyetti is the one and only person that says yes or no to a deal. Then we have a finance team with our CFO that puts the deal structure together, whether they're getting loans from the banks or they're using Murdad's money to go buy that development. Then once that gets purchased and done, then it gets turned over to a project manager. I get involved when it's in other cities to be able to help with some of the entitlements, whether it's zoning. A lot of times we buy property that already has zoning on it. We have a real niche to finding properties that need a lot of infrastructure improvements because we're very good with our contacts of being able to find ways to have water and sewer to projects that may be on the outlying areas of cities or maybe some blight areas that, maybe have some environmental issues that we can go in there and clean up, maybe fix it up to make it nice for the city that would be a Blythe area originally. But absolutely not am I involved in any of the negotiations on the price of the land, what they're buying the land for, or their financial structure. And so when you come to, let's say Celina, for example, and you come and a developer or a business owner buys a piece of property, they start out meeting with staff first. They look at what our ordinances are, what our state legislator puts certain things in place, that how buildings have to be built, what the zoning process is. Then we have a comprehensive plan that we redo every 3 to 5 years that has members of the city, citizens of the city, that get together and say, how do you want your multifamily? Where do you want your single family? Where do you see good commercial, whether it's on the toll road or on Preston Road? And so that starts out, so when they come into a city and they sit down with staff, they go through all these check boxes. And typically we have consultants on our side and staff, and the developer or business owner has their attorney, their engineers, or whatever. They come up with a plan based on what the comprehensive plan shows, or if it's something a little outside the box, how do you get it to a point to where it can go to Planning and Zoning Board? The Planning and Zoning Board has 7 people on it that's appointed by the council. We always, every year you hear about boards and commissions, and that's been a whole nother story the last year. But you get your Planning and Zoning Board. They're an advisory board, so they can either approve it or deny it. Most of our council, we listen to the denials. If it's denied by P&Z, then they didn't check all the boxes. But most things in our city, because we have outstanding staff, when it gets to P&Z, it's kind of hard to deny it because it's already checked all the boxes legally of what can be built on that property. Then once it goes to P&Z, it comes to council. We have 6 council members. As mayor, you don't vote unless it's a tie vote. And I want to be very clear, if my company, Centurion American, ever got to a point where it was a tie vote, my vote only breaks ties, and it would automatically have to be a no vote, and that project will be denied. But to my knowledge,
I want to clarify that, because I feel like you just said something that's really profound. If one of Centurion American's projects made it all the way to council, so it's gone through the staff process, it's gone through P&Z, and now it's at council, and somehow it's a split vote. Okay, we have 6 members on the city council.
Correct.
And let's say there's 3 in favor, 3 saying no. In 99% of the cases, meaning everything else that's not Centurion American, you would be the deciding vote. Is that correct?
correct.
If it's Centurion American, it automatically fails.
Correct. And that's based off of the conflict resolution that's set by the state of Texas at the legislative level. So
Okay,
what I mean
explain that to me. So I hear this term conflict. That's actually a legal term.
correct. It is a legal term.
Let's help everyone understand that. I understand what that means, but it's funny to say I am a conflict. You are a conflict, and as are most mayors. Most mayors of most cities are also a conflict. Am I correct about that?
There's a lot of mayors and council members in certain cities, in certain areas, that are a conflict from time to time.
And again, when we say conflict, the legal definition, conflict, it's already established. The protocols are already established for how you handle situations when you're involved in some way with whatever is in front of the council, on how that's handled.
Correct.
The resolution, if you will, to the conflict. And in your case, the conflict would be that you work for Centurion American. So if, and I say if, assuming that this has not happened yet, has this ever happened? Have you had a Centurion American case come to council where there was a split vote and you had to...
Never. It has never happened in any of the projects we've had that they've always been unanimous, or it's never been a position to where a tie vote happened and I would have to be a no vote that would kill the deal. All the projects that's ever been brought forth by Centurion American has always been approved, and without me having to be that tie vote, that would have killed the deal. So that tells me the projects that he's brought to the city has been liked by P&Z, has been liked by past councils for the past 30 years that have approved those projects.
Okay. All right. So, but if one ever did, if moving forward, you're reelected mayor and this situation comes up, it's going to die right there.
100%. If it's a tie vote, it dies. And so much so, you have a conflict, You have a resolution. I have to sign an affidavit once a year what my conflict is. And because I already know I'm only conflicted for Centurion American projects. And so I sign an affidavit that's done by the Attorney General's office that I sign saying I'm conflicted, because conflict is based on how much money that you would benefit off of that conflict. And so some people may work for a company, but say they're a consultant and they only get 5% of their money from that project. They're technically by definition not a conflict.
Okay, so if you only made, do you know what that percentage is?
Well, it's based off of your total income brought in. So it gets confusing. So if you made, if 25% or more of your income comes from that conflict, then you have to be conflicted out.
Gotcha.
Total amount you make. So for me, I've got one employer. I work for Centurion American. So I'm conflicted if I make $5,000 or $100,000. It doesn't matter. I'm conflicted out. And so you have to have that resolution that's signed that we keep on file every year. And so even in the recusal process, I could just raise my hand and say I'm conflicted, and I could sit in that room and listen to the deliberations.
But you don't do that.
But I take it a step further because I want to get out of there and show that, hey, I am a conflict. I step out of that room, let the vote happen, and they come back and get me. But you think about all the projects we have going on in Celina, I have to recuse myself very minimal.
Okay, wait. When you say all the projects we have going on,
not Centurion American, just as a volume of projects in the city of Celina, having only 8 projects over the last 30 years, I don't recuse myself every meeting is where I guess I'm trying to go with that.
Like it's a rare thing that you have to recuse
Correct.
yourself. And you certainly haven't had any ties to break on city council.
Never.
Because the quality of the projects, the scope of the work, whatever it is, has always obviously met with great acceptance and it has been well received.
Correct. Well, just like this past one, Legacy Hills has got all the buzz right now because it's going to be our first private golf course in Celina on 3,600 acres. And so that was originally owned by Dynavest back in the day, and it was a mud district. We worked really hard as a city to get that brought into the city. But I can tell you that's going to create over $2 billion in property tax for our city. That was voted on unanimously last year by our council. And I know we had 1 or 2 new members on there today, but I can tell you that is a project. It got Project of the Year for North Texas for Dallas Business Journal. And
Wow.
That was very much brought a great spotlight to our city. That's going to be a very cool project that has some it's got a fire station side, it's got school sites in it, it's going to have some retail, commercial. But that's the one been getting the buzz lately because it's such a big number that it's going to create right on the total.
Well, okay, so to go back over it, you're not out wheeling and dealing. You're not saying, hey, I want this company to come to Celina, or hey, we're going to build my own company's project over here, and you're signing on the dotted line and you're making it happen. There's actually an entire process for anyone, any business, your business, Centurion American, any business that wants to come here and do a development or bring their business here. They've got to go through steps. They've got to go through staff, planning and zoning, and then it's got to go in front of council. So it's not King Sean, as they say out there, doing the deals. It's an entire staff. It's a P&Z board, and it's a city council making these decisions. And let me just ask you this, and I have no idea what way this is. I don't know if we've ever talked about this, but are you allowed to work? Like, does your employer allow you to work on Centurion American projects in Celina, or no?
Absolutely not.
Okay, so you're not even allowed by your employer.
Absolutely not. I don't even sit on any meetings when they have internally. I've got enough on my plate with the other projects that we have different groups of project managers that are assigned to certain projects, and that's the team that works on projects. I'm not allowed to work on a project from Centurion American in Celina, and we don't discuss any projects. And, as mayor, I wanted to stick my chest out and be so proud of Legacy Hills because that deal is a huge deal for our city. But me recusing myself from that project because it was a Centurion American project, the mayor pro tem and the rest of the council gets to celebrate that victory, which they should. They're the ones that got it done there. But I do not even allowed to even discuss anything with Centurion American projects in Celina.
So oddly, it's almost quite the opposite. And I find this kind of humorous that the spin out there is that you're out here wheeling and dealing and doing all this stuff. The reality is, not only do you not get to really play an active role in it in the city of Celina, basically, your own employer doesn't allow you on that side, on your company side. You don't even get to participate in it like that.
Not at all. No discussions about it whatsoever. And it's kind of funny. I get asked about them sometimes about that project from citizens. And honestly, I don't know. And again, there's a reason there's a recusal process in place, because it's very important for growing cities or any cities to have a knowledge of what development is, whether it's bringing a Costco or a business in here. And so I feel very fortunate and lucky that I work for such a large developer that I get that experience in other cities, and I can really understand what staff do we need to make sure that we're getting the best development possible. And I think that's where my benefit comes in as being mayor, is understanding other cities' mistakes, because I sit in more council meetings than anybody else in our city. I mean, I go to council meetings in Mesquite, Dallas, Forney. So I see, to me, how it runs good and how it runs bad. And I can promise you, I challenge anybody listening, look up local mayors around here or local council members and what their employments are. Most of them you're going to see are real estate developers. You're going to see them as developers or home builders. You're going to see them as real estate agents. Your successful cities around here, you're going to see that they have a combination of, you're going to see bankers in there because of the financial side of it and stuff. You're going to see those kind of people that will be conflicted at some point. It's hard to, if you're in that business and you're a fast-growing city and you have 80 square miles to develop, every council member most of the time is going to have an opportunity to be a conflict.
And so what you're saying is that in some of our surrounding cities, or maybe even across the state, because of the fact that you've got to have knowledge of these different things, like you want people in your city government who understand development. If you're a developing city, you wouldn't want to not have an attorney on city council, because having an attorney, someone who understands law, that's kind of like a big deal. And I think we've got a couple of attorneys on city council.
Yeah, we do
right now.
Mm-hmm.
But it's possible that at some point, one of those attorneys would be the legal definition of a conflict and would have to recuse themselves. And that happens in almost every city at some point, or in some cities, maybe even more often, because I know, I'm just getting a name, so I'm not saying these are conflicts because I don't know, but Jeff Cheney in Frisco.
Correct.
A real estate person. Lots and lots of real estate stuff going on in Frisco. What about McKinney? What does the mayor of McKinney do?
So George Fuller's a great guy, a great mayor over there, and he owns a development company and a home building company. So he's Adriatica. If you've been there, it's an awesome place. That was his development that he did. He steps out when he's got a conflict, he steps out. And so we look at it as a negative, like, and again, I love, when you say King Terrier, those phrases that I get, that I control everything. And actually, you don't control anything. Your job as mayor is to be able to run meetings. Your job as mayor is when you have a natural disaster or you have emergency situations, that you can step in and call the governor or call your local officials that you need from a county judge to be able to make those decisions to keep our citizens safe. I took it a step further and got my NIMS, National Incident Management System training. I have that under my belt. I've worked head-on train crashes before. Have worked some hurricanes.
And just for the record, you've worked a pandemic.
Yes, we did work a pandemic.
And you handled that. One of the things that I have to say that almost everyone, whether or not they buy into the spin and the King Sean and they think you're out there wheeling and dealing and skimming off the top and getting rich, whether they're that side or whether they're people who actually know you and have learned the truth, everyone, and I say this and I hope you understand this, respects how you handled COVID, the pandemic, for this city. So thank you for that.
I appreciate that. And that was a tough time for us all. And I think it should have hit home that local government affects your life more than any other government. And you have to have the right people in place that aren't scared of when danger's looking you in the eye, the unknowns, that you're going to be the confident one that's going to find creative ways to keep people together.
All right, so one thing that I want to ask you about that keeps coming up out there right now, it just drives me insane because there's like two ways to win in almost anything, right? You can win on a technicality or you can win fair and square, the way that it's meant to be done. And I know one of the hot topics that have come up lately, all very much brought up by your opposition in this race, is where you live. Okay, so can we get into that a little bit?
Absolutely.
Okay, so as of right now, from what I understand, and this is all out there on social media, you live in a trailer.
Correct.
Is that trailer in the city limits, city of Celina?
Absolutely.
Are you legal to vote based on that address in the city of Celina?
Absolutely. I have my registered voter's card for that address. And you're welcome to go to Collin County Elections and put my birthday in there, April 11th, 1972, with my name. And it'll show you that I'm a registered voter at that address off County Road 58 in my little trailer. Some people say down by the river, but there's no river there.
Right. Okay, so you live there. And if you don't mind me asking, do you own the trailer or are you renting it?
I rent the trailer.
What do you pay in rent?
$1,500 a month.
$1,500 a month.
Yeah.
In a trailer. And why do you live in the trailer right now? Because I know you had a home.
Yep.
And I believe you're building a home, but I'll let you tell that.
Yeah, so, we sat down. My kids both went to college. We were living at DC Ranch, and we had decided that we wanted to downsize a little bit. But then when the golf course deal became a reality, once council approved it, and it was really got a lot of buzz, we're like, you know what? We've always wanted to live on a golf course. And we knew that would never be an option for us, we didn't think, because Celina didn't have a golf course. And as you know, Centurion American owns the Bridges and Gunner, and we like it up there. And so we had the opportunity to sell our house at the height of the market. We're empty nesters. And so Centurion American had some trailers that were out on the property. And so we're like, why don't we just rent that and live out there on the property? We're probably 8 months away before we can actually build our house, because obviously they're putting in infrastructure today. And as you know, it was hard to find a rental place in Celina at that time. So we're just like, me and my wife sat down as a family and said, you know what? We can suffer through this. And it's really not that bad. It's kind of got us closer again together when you're living in a little trailer. But I am no different than anybody that rents a house in Celina. The taxes are paid by the rentor, which happens to be Centurion American. People that rent or live in Centurion American projects, they're no different than I am. I'm living on a piece of property. They are temporary trailers by definition, so they have to be moved once that development has so many houses in there. But that's not going to be a problem. We're going to get our house built in 8 or 9 months. I owned a house in Celina for about 23 and a half years, 24 years. I think we've been out there for roughly almost a year. And so, yeah, we'll be excited to get a house built because I'm excited about how that development's going to be. But the bottom line is we rent a house. We're not like any different than any other renters. It's in the city of Celina. I've never lost my residency in Celina. I moved from one place to the other.
It's an opportunity, in my opinion, to try and look for a technicality, because wouldn't it be great if you're an opponent of somebody and you could go out there and say, aha, look, my opponent doesn't actually live. No. That may be how some people work, but that's not the way it's meant to work. Everybody knows you're critically invested in this city, and you're building a home now. You're living in a trailer. Let me just ask you this. How awesome is the trailer? Is it like, it's $1,500 a month. I'm not trying to...
It's not worth the $1,500 a month, I'll tell you, but I wasn't getting no deal on that. It shows you how much pull I got at my own company.
Right. So you said it's pulling you guys closer together.
Yes.
Because you're at, how many bedrooms?
It's got 3 bedrooms, but I would really say 2, maybe and a half, the way the one size is.
Right.
But the views are great. I have to give it that. The views are great. What's funny about that is, having to sit up here and justify, if I just wanted to just say, you know what, go look at my voter registration. I'm legal to vote out there. And you want to make up all this. But no, I get a couple individuals that have to come by, take pictures of my house.
Oh, yeah, I've heard
or fly a drone over my house.
Really?
Who we know who that is.
Really?
And, but it's almost comical that when you look at my record as the city and all the great things we're doing, and the staff that we have and the cool stuff going on, that I have to justify where I live. It's an opportunity that we chose as a family, that we're going to rent this trailer We're going to live out there till our house is built, so we don't have to make 3 or 4 moves, because you never know. He said, finding rent property around here has been crazy. And so, but yeah, I have no bones about where I live. I have people at the house all the time that come out there. And you know what? That's just the world we live in today. Some people just they're not happy with anything you do. They're always looking for a way that you're trying to go cut the corners. Well, if I was lining my pockets with money, I would sure find a nice house that I would rent somewhere.
Well, and I want to ask you this. I'm sitting here, and I don't mean this in any sort of a judgmental way, but that's not a Rolex you're wearing today.
No, it's an Apple Watch that my wife actually got me for our 30th wedding anniversary in January.
I don't see you wearing a $350 Italian-made shirt.
No, we live a pretty simple life. I mean, my wife, I've been fortunate. She's an accountant, so let me start off by saying that. You know how accountants are, they're pretty tight. And, and my wife has a good job. I got to give her, she just got promoted to a CFO position a couple weeks ago.
Very nice.
Working for a veterans organization that does things. And, I met and got married when I was a freshman at A&M, and I got my degree in ag economics. I know that's been one thing, talking about. I got my degree in ag economics with a minor in land management and real estate. Well, I had my real estate license for a while.
Wow.
And I did work for a sales company for John Deere for 10 or 12 years. But on the side, I was doing some real estate. I didn't know it was called entitlements then. That's a fancy name. But when Dan Christie was alive, he'd have me go out and look for some properties, or go out and say, hey, go see if you can go to the courthouse before cell phones could Google it, and go find the surveys and things like that. So I just didn't wake up one day and said, oh, Merdad, you're going to hire me because, I'm a councilman or I'm a mayor. I called Merdad for the job because I had met him, didn't know him that great, met him 17, stayed in contact a little bit here and there. But I've been one of those guys, when I went to college, I felt like I went to the best university at Texas A&M. When I wanted to really start off and not just do part-time entitlement stuff, I wanted to find the best guy in the market. And I was blessed that Merdad hired me on, and I'll never back down where I work. I think it's a great company. I could sit here and talk to you for hours about the philanthropy work that we do and good things that we do, how we get involved back in this community, stuff that he sponsors in this community and all over North Texas. And so, but yeah, we live in somebody posted we live in a van down by the river. It's not quite a van. It's a little bigger than a van, but you know what?
But according to the drone that somebody flew over to spy on you, and the pictures, I guess, that were taken from, wherever, from a distance, and all that kind of stuff, it doesn't sound to me much like King's living.
No,
King not. Sean is not sitting here wearing a Rolex. You don't live this really, outwardly expensive, lifestyle. I know you to eat in places like Tinder and Lucy's and all the places just like the rest of us do. Right. And I've yet to see you driving around in a Ferrari or some amazing sports car.
I'd love to have a Ferrari. I'd love to have a Rolex. It really has a bucket list, but
and it's I guess probably the fact that you're not actually out there wheeling and dealing and skimming off the top and doing all these crazy things that people love to spin and say. So essentially, what we've said here today very much mimics and mirrors the conversation you and I had months ago, when I was, like I said, a little on the fence. You hear all these things and you get these dark images of like this guy, and he's on the take, and he's just running the city for his own benefit and all this kind of stuff. And the reality is very, very different than that. Yeah. And so I don't know how you do it. I don't know how you put up with it. I don't know. The only thing I can imagine is that you love your community so much that it's worth it to endure all of that nonsense to ensure that you truly are. You're leaving a legacy. You're helping build Celina into something amazing. So I've got only another, I'm going to say 2 questions. I've got one very serious and one kind of fun.
Okay.
And then I'll get you out of here.
All righty.
All right. The very serious question, and I mean this with everything inside of me. If anything ever came down to a situation where either your company, your employer, since you're an American, was going to win, come out on top, or whatever in this situation, or the city of Celina was going to win or come out on top. It's one or the other. There's no. You're going to have to pick one or the other. Who does Sean Terry pick? Who do you choose to come out on top?
Celina's always first. Always has been and always will be.
All right. Now, the fun question.
Okay, let's get something fun here.
All right, so and I know you're a hardworking person. I've been after you forever to come on the show, so thank you for that. But one of the craziest, funnest questions that I ask a lot of people, and it's kind of become like a little bit of a trademark: would you rather fight a horse-sized duck or 100 duck-sized horses?
Man alive, 100 duck-sized horses.
The look on your face just completely changed.
I was going to go with the one duck.
You're going to go with the horse-sized duck.
Yeah, the horse-sized duck, because I think I'm still fast enough I can get away. I'd rather have one than 100, so I'm going with the one.
There you go. All right, Sean, thank you so very much, and I wish you luck in your campaign. And thank you for coming on. Thank you for being so candid. Thank you for being so open. And I'm sure you still welcome anyone who wants to. Anyone that might have a question that we didn't cover today, something I didn't ask, they can reach out to you. And you're very, very accessible.
Yes.
And you will take the time to sit down. You will answer the questions. Am I correct?
Yes, and I've been doing that, and they can reach me at info@SeanTerryFromMayor.com. My cell phone, 214-551-4567. I've been getting calls and emails, and I really appreciate your vote and your support. I think I'm the right thing for the city, the right person. I think my track record has proved that. And let's get out early voting because I need your help to win this election.
All right, guys, that is Sean Terry. Well, there you go, guys. Sean Terry, in his own words. Like I said, I think it's only fair that you give him the chance to tell his side of the story. Because one thing that I've learned above everything else is that Sean Terry is a good man. It reminds me of, like, Donald Trump. You hear all these terrible things about Trump until you hear the story of the bellman at Trump Tower who had nothing but amazing things to say about Donald Trump. You hear what a racist and what a terrible person Trump is. But when you talk to the bellman, who was there for many years, he says, Trump never, ever talked down to me. He always concerned himself with my family. And he was always a gentleman to me, treating me like I was someone special. And I feel like the same kind of thing happens to Sean Terry. You hear all the stuff, but when you get to know him personally, he is nothing at all like what you hear out there. So that's it, guys. Make up your mind. Cast your vote. But at least give some credibility to the fact that there's a lot of motives out there swirling around, pushing these really dark and twisted stories. Probably the most important thing out of everything is that we need to come together as a community. We need to heal all of this nonsense. So in that spirit, I'm going to play this next song for you, and then we're going to wrap it up. Listen to the words to this song, and try to remember that we're human beings first, and political idiots somewhere way down the list of importance. Maybe we can put some of the nastiness aside and come together as the amazing Celina community that we really are. And guys, until the next show, stay safe and God bless.
Last night, I had a dream of us coming together. Last night, in my dream, I saw unity. I had a taste of democracy, and I felt safe. East to the west and south to the north, people were living in peace, seeing the eyes of justice everywhere. Every land was thriving with love and prosperity. And I woke up asking myself, I woke up asking myself, why can't we achieve a sustainable peace? Why can't we have a sustainable future? Why can't we achieve a sustainable peace? Why can't we have a sustainable future? Why can't we? Last night, I dreamt of an end to poverty. All nations were growing, all nations stood strong. Smiles of understanding between one another. Politics and music belong to the people again. Equal rights spread amongst all shapes and colors. People were building a beautiful and stable home. Last night, in my dream, I saw humanity. And I woke up asking myself, I woke up asking myself, why can't we achieve a sustainable peace? Why can't we have a sustainable future? Why can't we achieve a sustainable peace? Why can't we have a sustainable future? Why can't we?